Hello, friends. Guess who? That's right. It's me again, your friendly neighborhood recovered alcoholic. Hope everybody's doing well today. Welcome to another episode of Deep and Effective Big Book Study. So today, my friends, we're going to be doing episode 25, which is step 11. And today we're going to be learning about the principle of spirituality. Spirituality with humility. So I'll drop in my email right here. recoveredalcoholic1939@gmail.com. Any questions, comments, concerns you might have about anything that we talk about on our channel in regards to recovery, by all means reach out to me and shoot me a message. If you're looking for big book sponsorship, both men and women, don't hesitate to hit me up. We'll get you pointed in the right direction and get you hooked up with a spiritual experience. And my friends, if you've been enjoying the content of this channel, I please encourage you to hit that subscribe button. Give it a thumbs up and share it if you can. It would really help out the channel grow and help YouTube's algorithms pick it up and put it out for more people. And as always, we're going to open up with the set-aside prayer. So if you take a quick moment of silence and join me in prayer, I shall lead. God, please help us set aside everything we think we know about ourselves, our disease, the 12 steps, and especially you, so we may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help us to see the truth. And since this is the Deep and Effective Big Book Study, let's all go to our textbook to page 25. The great fact is just this, and nothing less, that we've had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. Man, I love reading that. So let's recap, guys. We just came off that 10th step. We learned about the principle of perseverance. Right? We're also going to see the principle of perseverance repeated in the 11th step. As I was going through the last episode, getting it ready to be put out on the channel, through the editing process, I noticed a couple things that I failed to left out. And I usually never do this, but I wanted to bring this up before we moved on to 11th step. Right? And when we go to page 85, we're talking about this principle of perseverance, right? And we're talking about keeping in fit spiritual condition, right? So on 85, it says, this is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition, right? Well, how do I test my fit spiritual condition? How do I test my level of spirituality? How do I test how I'm growing in this new God consciousness? Well, that's what page 52 gives me. When we go back to page 52 in chapter to the agnostic, we have the bedevilments. Remember we talked about way back when? So that's how I can judge my spiritual condition. Right? How am I answering those questions on 52, the bedevilments, right? Am I having trouble with my personal relationships? Am I full of fear? Right? And all these things that they talk about. That's how I test. So I wanted to add that on before we moved into the 11th step. So 11th step, my friends, starts on bottom of 85, and we have one sentence. So let's, again, look at the simplicity of what we have. Step 11, in its entirety, is basically 2.5 pages. How simple is that? So let's look at it. Let's get in deep, and let's really look at what they wrote for us. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than us are using it constantly. Ooh, there's another window into perseverance, isn't it? So it works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. What is this attitude? Well, this goes way back early in the book. It's the attitude of willingness. That's the only way this thing works. It says it would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. Definite means exact, precise. Remember, throughout the entire program, they talk about we have clear, cut, precise, exact directions. So I'm getting ready to read the first prayer and meditation that is about the 11th step. And real quick, I've heard many times over the years, and the result of what the 12 and 12 talks about, that the evening review is the 10th step. It is not. It is very clearly stated in the big book that the evening review is the 11th step. And they're going to have 12 questions for me to ask myself. This is about sitting down in the evening with a pen and paper. And again, taking that daily inventory. I have 12 questions that I'm going to ask myself. And what I'm going to do as I go through each question, I'm going to pause and I'm going to sit quiet and I'm going to start to listen for that God conscious within, because he's going to let me know when it says, was I resentful? And I get quiet and I pause. Right? I'll start to know. I'll start to discern the voice that is God. Yeah, I was resentful. And then I write what I was resentful about. And I go through each one of these. Was I selfish? And I sit and I get quiet. And I try to think of an example. And I go through and I inventory each one of these questions. There's a very specific reason why the 11th step starts in the evening and not the morning. You would think, well, new day, step work starts every day. There's 2 reasons why the 11th step is in the evening. Number 1, it's a safety net for if I've failed to do a good 10th step. I have another opportunity to catch myself acting out on character defects. You with me? The other reason I'm going to explain in 1 minute. So I'm going to finish the paragraph on the evening review. And again, we're going to see the repetition of 4 through 9 within the 11th step evening review. We still see the basis of the inventory process, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are right here. So when it says we're resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid, well, again, that's step 4. I'm looking at character defects. To owe an apology. Again, 8 and 9, looking for that restitution, amends process. If I kept something to myself which needs to be discussed with another person at once, again, that's 5th step stuff. Was I kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? That one question, I literally can write a page every single day of the things that I could have done better. Because it's very important that we understand what I'm about to say, why it's in the evening. And I'll go through the rest of the questions. Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or were we thinking of what we could do for others? What we could pack into the stream of life? But we must not be careful to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection. That would diminish our usefulness to others. And here is the first 11th step prayer, by the way. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness. And here's a second 11th step prayer. And inquire what corrective measures should be taken. So I want to stop right there and break down everything we just talked about. So when I retire at night, in the evening, actually it's before my wife and I get ready for bed, I get quiet, pen and paper and book, and sit down and go over my day. Because remember when it talks about on the 11th step on the bottom of page 59, it says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. That's what the 11th step is teaching me, is to seek knowledge and power to carry out the vision of God's will into my life. Remember in the 10th step when it says every day is the day we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities? Well, that's what the 11th step is about. This is where I get that vision, right? And here's another thing that we tend to overlook is the direct correlation with step 3 and step 11. All of these parallels that take place, right? Because remember way back in that 3rd step of prayer and that third step agreement, contractual agreement I made with God, that He's going to be my new employer, right? So this is where I show up to work every day now and talk to the boss and ask him, what is it you need me to do today? You with me? This is where I get my directions. This is where I get my walking orders for the day. Now let's look at the on awakening. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. So let me ask you out there. Does anybody consider their plans for the day today? Right? Of course. So I hear this all the time. What was my plans today was I had to get up and go to work, take the kids to school, go grocery shopping, make dinner, go to the gym, go pay bills, right? Be a responsible adult, right? Right? That's what I tend to think are my plans for the day, and that's not. Those are actually my affairs. You see, the very first plans for my day that I need to be considering is there anything in my evening review that I need to tend to? Right? Was there any amends that I need to make? Any selfishness I need to clean up? Any resentments? Any dishonesty? The 11th step evening review becomes my plan for the day, which translates into some very simple things. My plan for the day is to practice these principles in all my affairs. My plan for the day is to be of maximum service to God and the people about me. Everything else are just the affair. Everything else is just life. And that's what needs to be going on in the background. Because the number one thing that transcends all in my life now is building and maintaining this new relationship with God. So when I now understand that I consider my plan for the day, that's not all the stuff. My plan for the day is to live the program. So I'm going to take it into the job. I'm going to take it to the gym. I'm going to take it to the gas station. I'm going to take it everywhere I go into my affairs. But before I can do that, I need prayer. I have to invite God in again. And this is what this is. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking. Again, another one of the 11-step prayers. I believe there's 9 11-step prayers. It says asking that we divorce from self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. So what is the first thing that I'm supposed to be talking to God about in the morning? The first thing that I need divorced from? Well, it's the same thing that I talked about to God in the 3rd step. The bondage of self. See, I don't wake up and ask God to direct my drinking. I ask God to direct my thinking. Right? And the reason that it says the very first thing that I need to talk to God about is self. Why? Because the very first thing I think about when I wake up is me. I have to get me out of the way so I can open up that channel to my new employer, my new boss, so he can tell me what he needs me to do for him today. You with me? So the morning 11th step review, prayer and meditation, and I do pen to paper. Every morning when I sit down with quiet time with God and I follow these directions and I journal what him and I talk about. That's that vision work that we talk about in step 10. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use, right? Remember back in the 3rd step that we have a new employer? Well, it's telling me right here that I'm supposed to bring my thinking into God's employee. If you go through the 11th step, and every time you see the word thinking or thought, circle or highlight it, and then count them. I believe there's about 8 examples of it. This is what this whole step is about, is bringing my thinking into a higher level of consciousness. Bringing my thinking into his employee. Just right here, it tells me that our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. Let me ask you, what could be of a higher plane of thought for an alcoholic like me who's selfish to the utmost extreme for me to start thinking about God and others before me? That's what happens in my life when I start to apply this daily ritual, the daily discipline of inventory and seeking God's will. I'll tell you a little side thing that I do. It's not in the big book, but it was born out of this sentence that I just read and another sentence I'm about to read. First thing I do in the morning is when I get up, I get coffee, books, pen and paper, and my phone. And I get ready to start doing my morning routine, which involves prayer, meditation, written two-way prayer. And I start reaching out to people, simply just texting people saying, good morning. How are you? Hope you're having a good day. I simply start thinking of others by taking action, because that is putting my thought life on a much higher plane when I'm thinking of you more than I'm thinking of me. So I have to act myself into this right thinking. So just something as simple as wishing people good morning and telling people to have a nice day. Hope you have a nice day. Gets me out of me. I got people all over the world now because of Zoom that I get to talk to on a day-to-day basis. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision, right? Again, not about drinking in my day, thinking in my day, because this is what this is all about. Face indecision, that's doubt, that's fear. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here's another prayer. We ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. Another example of how the 11th step ties into the third step, right? My will and my life, my thoughts and my decisions. This is what I'm talking to God about today. Again, we're so done talking about drinking. Here's some good instruction. Relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. Here's a beautiful promise. We are often surprised how the right answers come after we've tried this for a while. Again, remember the principle behind the 11th step is spirituality. And you look at the root word of spiritual, and it's ritual. This becomes a daily living practice in my life. It transcends everything else. Top of 87. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Again, it's all about my thinking begins to change. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God does not prove that we were going to be inspired at all times. Does everybody know what conscious means? Sure, we can all kind of take a stab at it. But if we go to our handy-dandy little big book dictionary, I want to read a beautiful example that they give us because it'll really deepen and broaden the sentence I just read. And they tell us, personally felt. Listen to this. Now go back and read that sentence. Having just made personal contact with God, right? Having just personally felt God. That was the whole point of the steps, was to get me in a state where I can personally experience God. Right? Oh, it's so powerful. Listen what they tell us. It's not probable that we're going to be inspired at all times. This is true, right? It's that daily struggle for me. God's will, my will. God's will, that's that back and forth struggle of ego and humility. They're like oil and water. They hate each other. So what I'm trying to do every day is keep that humility leading. We might pay for this presumption all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Absurd actions and ideas. Again, actions and ideas, what does that go back to? Third steps, my will and my life. So what is the most absurd action and idea that I can have now? It goes back to 62 in the third step, as I will still continue to try to play God. That is the most absurd idea that I can have. And that is the insanity that will come back to me. It's thinking that I got this and I don't need God anymore. Again, it's all about ego or humility, one or the other. And they're battling every single day. My ego wants to win so bad. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking, again, not our drinking, will as time passes be more and more on the plane of inspiration. Right? Remember when I tell you that I wake up and I text people and I tell them, that's what happens to me. I become more into this thought life of service and God consciousness. I think of you before I think of me. Wow, that wasn't supposed to happen to a guy like me. We usually conclude this period of meditation with a prayer that will be shown all through the day. What our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. What problems? Those are the problems on the bottom of 86 that they talk about. That's that two-way prayer, me and God talking, pen and paper, and I'm bringing those indecisions and those doubts that I have and not knowing which course to take. That's what we're talking about right here in this paragraph. Those are those problems. And then it says, we ask especially from freedom from self-will. Here's another prayer. And again, what prayer do we have that is specifically designed from freedom from self-will? That's right, the third step prayer. So we see another example of how the third step and the 11th step are tied together. So people ask me all the time, well, should I be doing my third step every day? Yes, because it tells me to right here on page 87. See, I have to be on a day-to-day basis a willing participant in my relationship with God. So I have to openly invite him into my day. Every single day. This is what it talks about. I have to go to him and say, yes, I want you to be my director today. Yes, I want you to be my boss. Tell me what you need me to do. God is not rude and he doesn't intrude into my life. I have to invite him in. There's some more good advice. We're careful to make no requests for ourselves only. God, keep me sober. I'm sorry is a selfish prayer. That's me telling God what he needs to do for me. Nowhere in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous does it ever tell us that we need to be talking to God about our drinking. What it does tell us over and over and over is that when we go to God and ask him what we can do for him, sobriety will be the inevitable byproduct of that. I know that's a very controversial thing to talk about, but that's the reality of it. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. God, how can I be a better teacher today? God, how can I be a better student today? These are the prayers that I ask God for. We are careful never to pray for own selfish ends. God, give me my whole life. Give me something. No, it doesn't work that way. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that. It doesn't work. You can easily see why. If circumstance warrant, we ask our wives, our friends to join us in morning meditation. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend that also, not instead of. If I start to think that I'm going to put other practices in front of this or instead of this, I'm headed for trouble. This has to be my foundation. This is my bread and butter. Right? I have other spiritual practices that I partake in. I have other readings that I am into. I have many other avenues that I pursue in the world of spirituality. But this is my foundation right here. It has to be. I can never substitute anything for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. If we're not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers, which emphasize the principles which we've been discussing. There are many helpful books, right? Again, I encourage you. This book I'm holding in my hand right now is Spiritual Kindergarten. I encourage everybody to pursue other avenues of interest. Let the Spirit guide you. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they offer. That's good advice. Here's some more prayers. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. Remember, anger or fear, right? When I feel that coming up and ramping up in me, what do? Ask me to pray. Ask for the right thought or action. Again, thought and action. Step 3, will and life. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show. Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, and here's my favorite 11th step prayer, thy will be done. Right? I can't even tell you how many times I have caught myself. That's the best I can do sometimes. When I'm hung up, I'm full of fear or anger or something. Thy will be done. Thy will be done. I just repeat it over and over. Sometimes I repeat it out loud. Sometimes I repeat it in my head. I just say it over and over. I start to train myself to hit that pause button. Thy will be done. Thy will be done. And I don't always do it perfectly, not by a long shot. But how simple is that? Everybody can remember, thy will be done. We are then much less danger of excitement, fear, worry, anger, self-pity, or foolish decisions. Why would excitement be a bad thing? I'll tell you, for me, being full of excitement can cause me to make a lot of bad decisions. Right? It can get me in debt. It's got me in unhealthy, toxic relationships. Being excitable can be a very dangerous thing for me. And what is a foolish decision? What does it mean to be a fool or foolish? It means uninformed. So today I have an opportunity to stop, hit that pause button, and make the best informed decisions I can for my life and the other people in my life. We become more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It is exhausting to run the show. Can you relate to that? When I'm trying to get everything in order just the way it needs to be, your life, my life, and everybody else's, it is an exhausting practice. And it is an exercise in futility. It doesn't work. Let's finish up. We alcoholics are undisciplined, right? We've all heard it in meetings, the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12. Well, this is where it comes from. We talked about the disciplines of 10 in last episode. We're talking about the disciplines of 11 in this episode. And we're going to talk about the disciplines of 12 in the next episode. We alcoholics are undisciplined. So we let God discipline us in the simple way we've just outlined. Simple. And who is in charge of all this? God. Not my sponsor. Again, I'm not knocking having mentorship and good direction in our lives. But again, this comes down to me and God. God is the source. My recovery happens between Him and I. And it talks about simple way. Right? So simple. But that is not all. There's action and more action. Faith without works is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. So let's recap, guys. The principle behind the 11th step is spirituality and humility, right? If there's anything that I can just truly leave you with today in this episode, is that morning on awakening review is completely dependent upon the evening inventory that I take, right? Remember, my relationship with God transcends everything else in my life today. Okay, I'll drop in my email again, recoveredalcoholic1939@gmail.com. Questions, comments, concerns, sponsorship, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And from the bottom of page 164, may God bless you and keep you till then. So take care and much love.